1 minute, 9 seconds into the game, Canada, Croatia. It was absolute jubilation for Canadians. You saw the celebration there. That was at Derby House in Toronto, Ontario. Alphonso Davies going into the history books as the first to get that goal for Canada at a men's World Cup. But of course, it ended in heartbreak. Croatia, there was still a lot of game to be played. They ended up scoring 4 goals. 4-1 was the final. And with that victory, it officially eliminated Canada from moving out of the group stage because Croatia and Morocco now both sit on 4 points. Morocco earlier in the day beating Belgium. So even if Canada go out and beat Morocco in their final game, it will not be enough points to finish in the top 2. So we're going to be breaking this game down. Former Canadian international Jimmy Brennan with me in studio. Joining us via Zoom will be 2-time Olympic medalist Diana Matheson. And then we'll take a look at that game against Morocco because the Canadians can still play spoiler. The Canadians can still add to the history books by getting their first result at a World Cup. So still much to be played for in that final game. You're watching Soccer North. I'm your host, Andi Petrillo. Let's bring in Anastasia Busis, who's at Derby House. The roller coaster of emotions, Anastasia, because we just saw your footage there of everyone going crazy, and then Croatia, of course, into the half, take a 2-1 lead. How was everyone feeling?
Well, you can see it's cleared out pretty quickly. I think there's a lot of, to be honest, just sad folks, really heavy. We lost momentum, of course, going into that second half, and we just didn't seem to find our rhythm again. But you know what? The fact that Canadian fans are this upset, I think it's actually a win because it's the hope that kills you. And for so long, we didn't have any hope. So I think a lot of people have actually changed their tune. They're saying, bring on Thursday and bring on 2026. Really, really historic day, but an upsetting day for a lot of fans.
Well, of course, because there were expectations given the way that they performed in CONCACAF. And did you get that sense? Because I know for the rest of the world, Canada is lucky to be there, or, there's still the small minnow. But for many Canadians, given the way they performed during qualifying, was there the expectation that they would move on to the round of 16?
I think so. And I'll say it again, right? It's the hope that kills you. There were so many people thinking, wow, we're going to do this. And I think the biggest learning lesson is that Canada wasn't quite ready, but they certainly gave it 2 valiant efforts against Belgium, against Croatia, and lots to look forward to. So there's going to be conversations, I think, from now until 2026, because people are saying, bring it on.
Well, Anastasia, I know that it was probably a big party to start this one. But of course, as you mentioned, it clears out pretty quickly because it ends in heartbreak. That's Anastasia Busis out at the Derby House there. And yeah, a lot of people had hope. I guess because, Jimmy, the way they performed against Belgium, we said they did not get played off the field. It was just a 1-0 loss. And then they score first against Croatia. And then it just dipped. I mean, overall, how are you feeling right now with Canada's performance?
I mean, obviously, we're disappointed with the results. But they couldn't have asked for a better start, could they? I mean, what a great ball that was in by Buchanan, and Davies coming in from distance as well, eyes on the ball and heads it down. Keeper's got no chance. And to go 1-0 up, and you could see across the city, everybody was just erupting. It was absolutely amazing. And it was a dream start, but then slowly as the game went on, we let Croatia get into the game. Croatia started dictating the play. They started putting pressure on us. And now you can only invite pressure for so long. Inevitably, you're going to give something away, and that's when we end up conceding. You go 1-1, and now you're starting to panic mode a little bit, and then they get another one. Now you're chasing the game, and at halftime you're down 2-1, and you got a mountain to climb after that.
Yeah, we're going to break down this game a little bit more, but I like that overall feeling. It's so mixed right now because Canada does make history, right? They get their first ever goal at a men's World Cup. That comes courtesy of Alphonso Davies, who gets a little bit of redemption, right, for missing that penalty kick against Belgium. But at the same time, it ends in a loss, but it ends in a loss that officially also eliminates them from moving on from the group stage. So if you're John Herdman, how are you feeling knowing that you had that game against Belgium that really did put the world on notice? Like, excuse me? Canada actually took it to Belgium, in that game. To now that third game, I'm not going to say it means nothing because, again, we'll dive into that, but it means nothing as far as advancing out of the group. Just how are you feeling?
Yeah, again, it's hard, and the players, there's going to be an awful lot of emotion that's going to be going through all the teams, or the team, and obviously John Herdman as well. but those players should be walking around and walking out of that stadium with their heads held up high. I thought, you know, the Belgium game, they were fantastic. I thought they worked their socks off. They gave everything that they had today. And you could see fatigue was starting to set in a little bit as well. And we had to bring in fresh legs at halftime to try to change things and tactics. But, you know, I think everybody in this country is very, very proud of these Canadian players and what they've accomplished. Just getting to the World Cup alone is a massive, massive achievement. And for them getting there and obviously scoring the goal that we all wanted, you can't take anything away from them. And I'm very, very proud of this team and what they've achieved so far. And yes, going into that third game, a lot of people say, well, it won't mean much. No, it does mean something. You're playing for pride. You're playing for this country, and you're playing for that crest on your chest. So there's still a lot to play for. That's for sure.
Well, let's talk about that goal. 1 minute, 9 seconds in, talk about making a statement for Canada. Alphonso Davies getting the goal. What did you like about it?
I loved everything about it. I loved the build-up play. I loved Buchanan. You know, he's always trying to get one-on-one with his player, and that's when he gets excited, and that's when he gets everybody up off their seat. And the delivery was absolutely spot on. And for Davies to come in with the pace that he did, eyes on the ball, and to make contact the way that he did and headed it down where the keeper's got no chance. A lot of times players come in, they'll head it straight or they head it up. But they always tell you, when you're in that box and as soon as you get in these opportunities, head that ball down because it makes it very difficult for the keepers.
It had to be Alphonso Davies. I know we were having fun before the World Cup started. Who's going to get the first shot on target? Who's going to get the first goal? Who's going to get the first yellow? And we were all, it's going to be Richie Larea who gets the first goal. Kyle Lair and Jonathan David. Like, we were all having, you stack you. I mean, everyone was all over the map, you know, because we wanted to have a little bit of fun with who could be the most unexpected. I felt like it turned into who was going to be the most unexpected.
Yeah.
But maybe in our heart of hearts, we always knew it was going to be
I
Alphonso
think so.
Davies.
And it's funny you say that because I think everybody was saying every single part.
But Davies.
No,
Yeah.
apart from the goalkeeper.
Oh, yeah, well, yeah.
Everybody was saying, oh, this guy's going to score that. You know, the bookies must have made a lot of money. But you're right. You know, if anybody was going to get that goal, you felt it was going to be Alphonso. And I'm delighted
redemption,
for him.
by the way.
100%, because you could see how devastated he was missing that penalty in that first match. And for him to score that early in the match obviously gives him a sense of confidence as well, because he was thinking, I need to get a goal back here. And for this team and for this country, I've let myself down a little bit during that penalty, but I'll be sure to make sure that I get, when the next opportunity that I get, I'm going to finish it. And I thought his finish was perfect today. Yeah,
intentional or not, the comments of John Herdman, I think, drew away from Alphonso Davies and missing that. But, you know, the player himself, I should say, was not forgetting it. And, you know, a lot of people, this was after he scored, saying, this is Alphonso Davies after missing the penalty. And I took that personally. I think everyone's going to be using that. That, of course, is Michael Jordan from his great documentary there. Because he did. The player doesn't forget. We were talking about other things. We were talking about Herdman's comments about Croatia and then the Croatian tabloid and the placement of the maple leaf. But the player himself was probably sitting there going, I had a moment in that 10th minute against Belgium to get Canada's first ever goal at a Men's World Cup, and it didn't happen, and it weighed on him, but he gets that redemption. As an individual, I'm sure he'd be a lot happier if the team walked away with the win, but let's not ignore who gave him the ball, and I know you said it was a brilliant ball by Tajon Buchanan. Tajon Buchanan, to reiterate, in March of 2021, was playing for the under-20s at a tournament trying to qualify Canada for the Olympics. He then makes his senior debut at the Gold Cup that summer and then never looks back, Jimmy. He played in MLS, New England Revolution. He now plays for Club Brugge in Belgium. You've got to think other leagues right now are looking at him going, sorry, Belgium, we're taking him.
Well, that's the rumors right now, is that the top leagues in Europe are starting to look at him. And he deserves it. You know, and I've always said, you know, every footballer needs to find a home. And you know, when he had that opportunity at New England, he was playing some fantastic football, and a lot of people in the league were talking about him. Then he gets into the national team, and now everybody else in the country is starting to talk about him a little bit more. And then that's when the confidence starts coming as a young player. You start getting into your stride, right? And you could see when he's on that ball, he's looking to take players on. The confidence is there. He's allowed to express himself, and that's always important as well. Managers that allow the player to express himself and be who they are in the field. Because at the end of the day, when they walk onto that pitch, that's their theater. That's where they're there to entertain. And they have to be allowed to express themselves. And you can see he's just growing and growing with confidence. And even in this World Cup, after that first match against Belgium, I mean, he was one player that everybody walked away from that match and went, wow, what a player he is. And now you've got the big clubs that are looking at him. And I don't think it won't take long. By the end of this World Cup, you know, I'll be sure that he'll end up going to a big club somewhere in Europe. That's 100%.
And to your point, is his confidence. He's not intimidated. In that Gold Cup, by the way, he scored a goal against Mexico.
That's right.
You know, you remember that? That was the whole, like, he was plugging the ears after he scored that to silence the crowd. And obviously Mexico did end up going to win that. It was a late goal by them. But he scores against Mexico, doesn't look out of place against Belgium, going right at Croatia here. So he's not just a young player who's kind of found his way onto the team. He's been commanding his spot on the team as well. Someone who's been doing it for a very long time, of course, is Atiba Hutchinson, though. He had already set the mark for the most caps on the men's side, but now he hits the century mark. So 100 caps is what he actually reached today, 98, you know, going on into the tournament. So this is really special for Atiba. He also became the second oldest player to play at a men's World Cup. Roger Mila of Cameroon did it at 42, Atiba at 39. However, Jimmy, the midfield was the talk here. So this is Herculez Gomez, former player, says, I've never criticized Herdman, but this is completely on him. The center of the midfield has been an issue all game, and you can clearly see Hutchinson is struggling with his fitness, yet won't make a move. So, of course, we know Herdman has been meticulous with his tactics. The only thing I can think of, and I was trying to read lips here, but Stefan Eustachio, when he goes down in that first half, it was near the end of the first half, I could have swore I saw him say hamstring. Then Eustachio doesn't come out for the second half. Do you think, if you put your manager cap on, and of course we're speculating, but maybe Herdman wanted to take Atiba in, but because he couldn't, because he had to take Eustachio out, or I should say because he had to take Eustachio out, he couldn't take Atiba out? Yeah. Do you think that's the case?
No, you're right. And hamstring, it looked like it. Sandwich. We don't know what he said, but he's holding something.
Sandwich. I'm hungry. I'm saying sandwich. Yeah,
I'm starving. Get me off. But you're right. I think if I mean, just watching that game, and to go on what Herculez Gomez said as well, he noticed it. Atiba was struggling with a little bit with fatigue. You could see it towards the end. There was a couple of times where the Croatians were breaking through, and it looked like he was running back with a parachute on. That means you could see he's getting heavy legged at the time. And I'm sure Herdman was probably looking at it thinking, okay, we'll get Atiba off. But then if Eustachio's injured, now that just changes your whole plan. Do you take both central midfielders off and all of a sudden put two central midfielders back in? And then it changes the whole dynamic as well. So you got to keep one in. So he's obviously said, okay, we'll keep him in there, and then we'll bring in Osorio and we'll bring in Akone and play them all three of them together. And that's probably what's happened there. I'm sure he would have taken Atiba off, but because of the situation, he had to take Eustachio off. But, you know, did we get overrun in the middle? Yeah, at times. It's simply because of the movement as well. What they were trying to do is push up our fullback would go nice and high, then our midfield, Eustachio would come out, and then that wide player would come inside because they were trying to overload the middle, but then also try to disrupt the Croatians. But then as soon as you lose possession now, you're a little bit more open, and then you start chasing shadows. And you saw that a few times in the match where we were a little bit too open defensively, trying to track back, and we lost runners.
Yeah. So there you go, and that's all she wrote. 4-1 ends up being the final here. And for a lot of Canadian Croatians, they're no longer split in their allegiances because now it appears Croatia is looking good. But heading into the tournament, as we know, Canada is beautiful because of its multiculturalism. So how are some fans planning to cheer on their team now that Canada was in the World Cup for the first time in 36 years?
It has been 36 long years since Canadian soccer fans have been able to cheer on the men's national team at a World Cup. So we're thinking there might be some fans out there cheering for two teams.
I used to live in France, so maybe France, but other than that, you know, I'm so excited to just have my own country at the World Cup.
Also, you won't have any split allegiances at the World Cup.
Exactly. You know, I'm all in for my own country, and that's awesome. That's very exciting.
I have a big Italian family, and the very first World Cup that I watched in '82 when I was even younger, Italy won that one, so that kind of hooked me on soccer, actually. So I definitely have an attachment to that team. It won't be a complicated World Cup for me, given that they did not qualify for this one.
I grew up always cheering for Portugal, even though, you know, I was born here in Canada for so many years, and to see Canada actually finally make and be able to cheer for like the country I was born in was phenomenal. it is Canada #1, absolutely. And they are going all the way. If for some reason they don't, which is not going to happen, I'll off the bandwagon jump a bit, but it's Canada all the way.
I come from Guatemala. I'm originally Guatemalan. I have never had a team to root for that's like mine on the World Cup. So like now, like witnessing that with a lot of people that are as well outside, like you see David, everybody has a background that as well as like from outside of Canada. So like, you know, I feel like I belong with that team, and that's amazing. It's an amazing feeling.
Jimmy and I were not torn. We were Canada all the way. No Ireland in the World Cup, no Italy in the World Cup. That's okay. But Canada officially eliminated from moving on to the round of 16. 4-1 loss to Croatia here today. Let's bring on into the show someone who knows what it's like to compete at big tournaments. She's an Olympic medalist. She's competed at the World Cup. That, of course, is Diana Matheson. Welcome to Soccer North. My friend, your feelings after that one where you have this historic moment of Davies scoring the first ever goal at a men's World Cup to a pretty big loss for the Canadians in this one. How are you feeling?
Feelings. Probably same as you folks. I think same as a lot of Canadians. Like the buzz around this tournament, the excitement around this tournament's been something that's been pretty cool. And I think we're all equally sad that the third game we won't necessarily have anything to play for. That said, I think that we've also got a third game to enjoy, and I'm sure John's going to regroup his team here and aim to set history for getting Canada's first win in a men's World Cup. So I'm looking forward to that still. But yeah, I think like all of Canadians right now, a bit sad and disappointed right now, but still pretty proud of that group over there.
If you could take us into the room, Deeks, again, you've been at so many tournaments as well. Has there been like one that you've been in where you know that third game does become more about pride? It can be one about spoiling things for the other team, but it doesn't mean anything for you to move on. What's said? How do you rally the troops? What is it that motivates you to play in that third game?
I think it's different for every group and the circumstance. I think the circumstances of this one are that Canada's men's national team has already made history, ignited, this wave of excitement in Canadian men's soccer. And like, we're not turning back from that. This is the beginning of a new era in Canadian men's soccer. And with 2026 around the corner, like if the buzz was like this in Canada this year, I'm so looking forward to 2026. And I think these guys have an opportunity to gain a third game of World Cup experience and go out and try and get that win now. So that in 2026, that storyline going in isn't, oh, when are they going to get their first win? No, they can go get the win the next game. That's already checked off. And then 2026, all these guys are going to have 4 more years of experience under their belt. Jimmy was talking about it. Hopefully this World Cup gives some opportunities for a lot of these players to move to better clubs, get more minutes, better leagues, so that all our players kind of have that next level of experience in 2026. Because I think that's the only thing that was missing this time around.
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, and you mentioned, like we were talking again, I know we'll dive into it with 2026. These are, players who are young enough where this is incredible World Cup experience for them, but kind of what hope does that give you when the next World Cup will be on home soil? I mean, it's the first time that it'll be hosted by 3 different countries, Mexico, USA, and Canada. But, not to look too far ahead, but when you are looking at 2026, does this bode well for them?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, as soon as they qualified for this one, I think it bodes well for 2026, because this is such a young, talented group for the most part. And all these players now have World Cup experience, and that's huge. 2026 isn't going to be the first rodeo. They're going to be used to it. When the women's national team first made the Olympics, one of the things we always heard was it's hard to do well in your first time around. And that's just because it's this big new stage and show when you're not used to it. And these guys now will know what it's like. And, this young core is going to be a little bit of that core veteran, been there before group next time around. And they'll be able to tell any new guys that are coming in what it's like. So we're set up so well for 2026, honestly. And then, like I just said, the most important thing is that these guys now go out, take advantage of this exposure they've just had to kind of level up in their professional careers and get that top pro experience as much as they can the next 4 years. Because that's the gap you see. I think, and you guys were speaking about it as well, someone like us and someone like Croatia, the Croatia guys in the top clubs they're playing for years and years. And that's going to come for Canada too. We're just obviously pretty new to the show. Mr. Herdman's only been there a couple years. Give him more time, but this, I mean, the future is so bright for us.
Diana, when you look at this last game, obviously we're disappointed, really. I mean, not getting anything from the last two games, especially the first one, we felt we should have got something. Do you maybe take a different approach going into this third game, and where you say, okay, maybe I'm not going to start the best 11, but I'm going to actually get some quality time for other players that haven't played much, maybe a goalkeeper like Dane St. Clair, get him in, get some World Cup experience? Or do you go again with your best starting 11 into this match?
Yeah, I think for me, I go best starting 11 again. If you've got a core group here who's going to be around for a while, and get them that experience of game after game after game in a World Cup, because, in 2026, we're going to need these guys to do more than 3 games as well. And go after the win, go after it, get after Morocco for those 3 points. Because again, that'll be huge. That's setting history, and there's nothing John Herdman and his teams like to do better than set history. So I think that's going to be a pretty clear target for these guys. They've got the goal out of the way. We've scored the goal. Yeah. Now it's about getting the 3 points, and I mean that's important. It's going to matter to them. It's going to matter to Canadians. Okay, we're not playing to get through to the next round, but we can play for 3 points here, and that's pretty huge in Canadian history too. And then that's out of the way for 2026, because if it's not, that's just going to be the news story going in. Oh, when are they going to get their first win? Let's just get that out of the way.
Yeah, exactly. And the talk going into this one as well, Dee, was how many Canadian players were going to catch the eye of European clubs, and we're already hearing that Alistair Johnston has a verbal agreement with Celtic. We know some Canadians are playing in Europe, but now we wonder if they'll just end up going on to higher leagues. Even Jonathan David, the rumor's been there forever, even though he's with Lille. Will he end up going to the Premier League? How much do you think these players as well are using this opportunity? In fact, Jonathan Osorio has been very open and honest in saying he was using the World Cup to showcase, to be able to, live out a dream of playing overseas. How much do you think that motivates? And then once again, goes back to helping them when you play at higher leagues, how that affects the national program?
Yeah, I think you have to use this as a stepping stone to level up your pro career as well, because that's where you spend the majority of your time, and that's where you're honing your game, and that's where you're, if you're playing at that next level up, that's going to prepare every player more for 2026. So I think player for player, you have to take advantage of that. Similar on the women's side, once we started making podiums, then suddenly our players in the professional game became a lot more attractive to countries. Canadians have to be cool to be able to sign. You can have the same player, but if that country's not kind of trendy, you're not seen on the world stage, you're not going to get signed. And I think Canadian men's players now are going to be a little bit cooler than they were before, and that's important for leveling up that base of the national team, because you can do this every 4 years, but unless your guys are in better and better environments, that gap is always going to be there. So it's huge, I think, to take advantage of this world stage to level up our professional game for our players.
We've had great success with the women's program. Our men's program is starting to get success now. Are we slowly becoming this big football country that we truly want?
Yeah, I feel like I want to ask you that one too. Yeah, I feel like we are. Like, we're late to the party, compared to a lot of the rest of the world. But no, we already know our women are one of the best countries in the world, period. And once we build our pro league here, we're going to stay that way. And the men, I don't think the men are going anywhere now. John Herdman has taken this program to a place where it's just not going to turn back. Like, we've got 2026. And then once this group of guys has been in 2 World Cups, give me a break. And the foundation is there on the pro game, obviously, with MLS and the CPL, where there's this great system. So we're going to have players continually coming through, and with the inspiration, young men's players can have, I think, there's no turning back from this. And 2026 is going to be something really, really special, I think, once it comes back to Canada. And I know the legacy of that is going to be important. I think our women's game is obviously the next thing to build, and continually investing in our infrastructure is a huge one. And for me, that's something 2026 we have to get right, because if we can build our infrastructure to support this incredible soccer nation we now have, we're not turning back.
Infrastructure, that's the key word. You just said it there, Dee, because the Olympics, World Cup, they happen once every 4 years. How do you keep people engaged? And true soccer fans want to see the everyday, the in and out. So to your point, between MLS, CPL, and yes, the need for a women's domestic league, that's how you keep them engaged. That's how you do storytelling. That's how they get to know the players. And that's how they continue to stay engaged. And I know you're playing a huge role in that. So we appreciate that. And we appreciate you taking the time here on Soccer North. And speaking as well of, Football Nation, what is just about a football place? That would be Brampton. 7 players are from Brampton who are on this roster for the Canadian men's national team. What is going on in Brampton?
I had the New York Times call my office, and the first question they asked is, what's in the water in Brampton?
I would say you go to Brazil and you have these little pockets, or you go to Argentina and they find these amazing players in these places you wouldn't find them. And so I think that's like Brampton.
Brampton is like a melting pot for like a lot of communities and a lot of diversity. So I think that helps as well.
The saying goes, it takes a village. Ashley Lawrence, Kadisha Buchanan often come back to the club to give back to the community. They often say how happy they are and how fortunate they were to have the community, so the village, to be able to give them opportunities to be able to play.
It's so great to see, players like Dejan Buchanan, Kyle Laren, Junior Hoylett, Atiba Hutchison, Jonathan Osorio, Jaden Nelson, these players that have all come through Brampton at some point in their development actually get to a level and reach their dreams.
A long time ago, we'd look up and think, I have to look up to somebody in Europe, to who I can emulate in the moves that I want to do and how I want to look like, and then who do I want to model. But they have people in their backyard now that they could look at and say, they can do it, I can do it. So it's pretty special to be, I think, a young athlete living in Brampton.
What's up, Brampton as well? Like I said, 7 on the men's team, but you just saw there Kadisha Buchanan, Ashley Lawrence doing some things on the women's side as well. And I want to go back to a couple points that we had with Diana, because it's one thing to have a men's league here, which you know about. You were coaching there with the CPL. It's another thing to bring a women's league here. But how much of it also really depends on this whole infrastructure of media paying attention to it, giving it its due, airing the games, highlights. Like, if people also don't know about the players, then how does Canada, how do Canadians create a connection?
Well, that's it. It's all part and parcel. I mean, everybody's got to play a role, and you're right. The media does, the community does, the ownership groups, and everybody that's involved in the game has to play a role in order for something to grow. And we have to continue to create awareness. And yes, we've got a domestic men's league, but we have to get a domestic women's league as well, because if we don't, we're going to fall behind with the rest of the world. You look what's happening in Europe right now. They've got all these domestic women's pro leagues. They're developing their own players. Sure, a lot of our players are starting to head over that way, but what about the rest of them? What about the young talented women that's in this country that need somewhere to play? And we have to create that league sooner rather than later, or we're going to fall behind.
Yeah. Let's go back to the men now, because they do have one more game to play. And of course, Diana just said, get rid of that storyline, right? Get your first result at a World Cup. It would be great if it's a win. But there is something to play for against Morocco, because there's that from a personal program perspective. But they can still play spoiler, because right now Belgium desperately needs to win their final game against Croatia. Imagine if Canada ends up getting some sort of result against Morocco and upsets the deck. Would you be using that as motivation if you're John Herdman?
Yeah, you would. I mean, you want to cause a dent in the pool now, don't you? You want to make something happen. And for Canada, if we can walk away with a goal being scored and 3 points, I think everybody would be very, very happy. And obviously, now it'd be a little bit of fun to mess up the table and stop something from happening. But at the end of the day, they're not going to be looking at that. They're not going to be looking at playing spoiler. They've got their own agenda. They want to get something out of this game and make sure that they finish this tournament on a high and get the 3 points that they want.
Can I upset the apple cart here a little bit? Can I ruffle feathers?
Even if I said no, you're still going to do it.
I have a question for you, because there were rumors even heading into this World Cup of pro teams being interested in John Herdman. I can't imagine the temptation of coaching at a home World Cup. But are you a little nervous these next 4 years?
Yes.
See?
I think we all are. We're all a little bit nervous. I mean, what he's done for the program, for the women's program, the men's program, he's brought great success. He's a natural leader, and everybody's buying into what he's preaching. And We've had great success in both programs right now, and this is a man that you have to keep. You have to keep him in this program, because if you don't, who knows who's coming in next? Do they have a different philosophy, a style, identity? Does it change everything? Do we disrupt the apple cart here now? So for me, if you're the Canadian Soccer Association, do whatever you can to tie him down. Sure, he might have plans at one day that he wants to go into professional football, domestic and club. But right now, do whatever you can to hold on to him, especially when we're building up towards this next World Cup that's going to be here in Canada.
Yeah. Anyways, I just thought because listen, it's a topic of conversation.
Oh, for sure.
You know,
it is.
we've had it. We've seen what he's been able to do with both programs here. 4 years is a long ways away, right? So I'm just wondering. There was already rumors heading into this World Cup. Would he even be the head coach of the team heading into this World Cup? The temptation was too great, I think, for him. He's like, I'm coaching at a World Cup.
Right, but you got to think as well. I mean, the rest of the world, all these other national organizations are going to be looking at him. They're all going to be sniffing around, thinking, "Oh, can we lure him out of Canada?" And then professional teams, club teams, are going to be doing the exact same thing, right? They'll be starting to get into his ear. They'll be on the phone to the agents, trying to think, "Okay, what's it going to cost us to get us out? How long is he under contract now? And is there a loophole that we can get him for next to nothing, or maybe we got to pay a fee for him to the Canadian Soccer Association?" So, I mean, there's a lot there, but the vultures are all going to be out sniffing around now to find out what his situation is. That's for sure.
See, it's not just players who catch the eye of other clubs; it's the head coach as well, right? So that's why we always wonder. I know we have a lot of mixed emotions. Final thought, though, when it goes to what Canada has been able to accomplish, right down to their World Cup qualifying, which all began in March of 2021. Their home games weren't even home games because remember COVID, they couldn't even play. Finishing first in CONCACAF, beating USA, beating Mexico, along the way. I know it's got to hurt that it ends with one more game left to go in the group, but when you just look at a whole what they've been able to do, how does it make you feel?
Proud. Genuinely proud. It's been one hell of a ride, to be honest with you, and I think everybody's just enjoyed the momentum that we've had and the success and watching them qualify and get into a World Cup and seeing these players on the world's biggest stage competing. And I remember after that first game against Belgium, just the amount of texts that I was getting from people back in Europe, just saying, "Wow, look at this national team play. You guys are dynamite. You should have won the game. You got some great players." It's a sense of pride just to see where this country is with this game, and now players are starting to get attractive to Celtic and top leagues around the world, and it's exciting time for Canadian football, and we're only going to keep going forward, and we just got to keep this momentum going because it truly is a special time for this country and for this game.
Well, Canada gets their first ever goal at a men's World Cup, but unfortunately it ends 4-1 in a loss to Croatia. So that means they are officially eliminated from moving out of the group into the round of 16 because even with a win in their final game against Morocco, they will just not have enough points to catch Croatia and Morocco. And that's going to be a huge game for Morocco because they know Belgium is sniffing around too, right? So that final game will matter for each team in that group. We will be going live after that game against Morocco Thursday, December 1st. So be sure to join us 15 minutes after the final whistle, the final game at the World Cup for Canada at 2022 Qatar. Big thank you to everyone who's joining us. Big thank you to the guy to my left, Jimmy Brennan, for joining me here on Soccer North Live after this one. It's been a blast, Canada. We look forward to doing it again when they face Morocco December 1st. See you then.